Welcome to the Career Intelligence Podcast. I'm your host for today, Betsy Jewell. I'm a career coach and founder of Betsy Jewell Career Coaching, where I help college students, recent graduates, and early career professionals navigate today's changing world of work. Today's episode is such an important conversation because we're digging into a contradiction so many young adults are experiencing right now. Employers say there's a massive talent shortage, yet so many college students and recent grads are struggling to get hired. My guest today is Nick Wyman, workforce development expert, Forbes contributor, and a major advocate for apprenticeships and alternative career pathways. Nick started his own career as an apprentice at 17 and has spent years helping organizations rethink how talent is developed and hired. In our conversation, we talk about why the traditional college-to-job pipeline is breaking down, the rise of skills-based hiring and modern apprenticeships, and why community involvement and showing up still matter in a digital world. Whether you're a student, parent, educator, or an employer, this episode will challenge some long-held assumptions about career success, and it will offer a more realistic and hopeful perspective on the future of work. Now let's dive in. Hi, Nick. Thanks so much for being here today on the Career Intelligence Podcast. Can you just take a minute and introduce yourself to my audience?
Hi, my name's Nicholas Wyman. I'm a workforce practitioner. Started my life as an apprentice, and I really like to embrace the idea of learning by doing.
I'm really excited for this conversation. I think it challenges a narrative that so many people still believe, right? We keep hearing about a talent shortage, but at the same time, I'm working with college students and recent grads who are struggling to get hired. And when I read your recent Forbes article, one line really stood out to me. You said the talent shortage isn't about degrees, it's about pathways. Because if you look at the data, we're short about 1.7 million skilled workers every year. And in some roles, it's nearly 20 jobs for every qualified worker. So something's not lining up, and I'd love for us to start there. Can you tell me or talk about, what are we getting wrong about the idea of this talent shortage?
So I think we have to always remember that we're in this age of globalization and technological change. So that's sitting behind the scenes, and just the advancement of AI in the last month is officially frightening. There was this Claude, and one of Claude's new models, I think it's called Mythos, broke out of its own sandbox and started to teach itself how to get and post things online autonomously. The world of work is changing in the way people work, live, and learn. And so there's all these different factors that are, think of it like levers, all these levers that constantly need to be adjusted, whether it be because of tariffs, policies, global conflict, jobs being displaced or changed by automation. And for people at any age or any stage, they need to constantly refresh and reboot their careers. And you have to be able to adapt to change, I think is really the cornerstone of that.
I talk about that a lot on this podcast and with my clients. It's about being able to adapt and pivot and upskill and reskill as necessary. But isn't there accountability for this on both the sides of the job seekers and the employers? Because isn't it also about expectations and accessibility to be able to build those skills and relearn or learn things differently?
And I think we all have attributes. Each of us are individuals. And one thing that I think will come to the forefront is humankind. There's a Japanese, I'm probably going to say the word wrong, but it's called jidoka, which is humankind and machine working together in harmony. And I think we've got to find that right balance. Now, some roles will be replaced by AI, particularly roles that are susceptible around marketing and a lot of entry-level data roles and things like that. But healthcare, I don't want to take my son, my daughter, my pet to the vet to go and see a machine, but I'm very interested in how technology can play a part of that. And I think that it is this constant refreshing, rebooting, and really important to say right at the top of our conversation that I'm very much about lifelong learning. I started an apprenticeship when I was 17 because I knew I liked to learn by doing. I liked to learn with my head and my hands. I wasn't the student to sit in the classroom. And that was the right path for me at that time. I went off and became alumni at Harvard Business School, but I did that at the right time for me. Would have been an absolute waste of time in my teens or even early 20s to go to college. I wasn't that person. I used opium, not the drug, opium, other people's money. I actually was smart and I found an employer who was prepared to contribute to my MBA. So there's so many different ways to get to where you want to go in your career or a career path. And I think that, there's no right or wrong path. It really is about what's right for you, the individual.
Oh, absolutely. I beat that drum all the time. College now or later or never, depending on who you are and what, to your point, what your goals are. And I have clients who, and even my son, he's a hands-on learner. He does not want to sit in a classroom and just consume, consume, consume. He wants to be out there doing that. So the traditional college to job pipeline,
Right.
would you say that's breaking down?
You had the exit ramp for the not so bright kids to community college or young people. That was this misconception that it was college or bust.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know what you want to study or what you want to do, and there's a college course or pathway, follow your dream, go and do it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're looking for career advice, you're not quite sure what you want to do, going to college can be pretty expensive, as we've seen with this huge debt. So many people I meet have college debt, and it doesn't necessarily result in the outcomes you're looking for. I've got a daughter who is just finishing up a 4-year college degree in Northern California. And she was getting really upset, last couple of days saying, Dad, I've written to 100 different places looking for post-college work opportunities, internship. People don't even write back to me anymore. And it's really tough for young people, whether it be making that school to work transition or people who've obtained a college degree and realize that the degree is not necessarily going to result in that job straight out of the gate. And what I've said to her is, just it will come. All good things will come to those who wait. I said, patient grasshopper. Find something. Don't beat yourself up. Look at the strengths and things that are unique to you. Betsy, you might have picked up, I've got a slight Australian accent, which is
Just
funny.
a bit, just a bit.
A little bit. I've actually lived in the US for over 15 years, and my children definitely do not sound Australian, but I do. So I said to my daughter that she has Australian heritage. Think about jobs and roles that might work for her. There's an Australian consulate. There's membership associations. So I always say to each individual, take a step back and do a bit of a skills audit and think about some of the things that you've done, whether it's, attending something, being a part of organizing something, you're a part of a church group or something in your community. These are the things that really can help you stand out in fairly tough times.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do a lot of self-discovery and career exploration work with my clients because I have many college students who will come to me in their senior year, spring semester, and say, I'm going to graduate with this insert degree here, economics, psychology,
Yeah.
whatever it might be. And I
Yes.
have no idea what I want to do or what I'm good at. And we do exactly what you're saying. We look at past experience. What have you done? What
Right.
have you felt good? What energizes you? But also, what will the world pay you for, right? Just because you're good at it or you think you'd like it, you want to make sure that it's sustainable. So how are you seeing students or Gen Z approaching education and work? Are you seeing a difference in the way they're going about it?
I think ultimately people, doesn't matter what generation you're from, it doesn't matter what your background is, whether you have a disability or whether you're from an unrepresented group, people generally are looking for a sense of purpose. It's more than just a job. You spend a lot of time at work and in a career. And I think there's a lot of fear that you have to make this school to work transition or graduate college and go straight into this magical job. It's all about life experiences. And there are so many people I know who, done incredible things. I always ask them, I'm like, what did you do? What was your background? I was asking a physician yesterday, actually, an amazing physician. And I said to him, what was your background? You just go to college? And he's like, oh no, I was a maths teacher. He's into precision medicine. And he finished his medical degree and then went off and did a second degree. He knows that he wants to use technology and medicine and different things. So this idea, it's almost like, maybe myth busting. We don't want to get ourselves into trouble with copyright or anything. But there is this myth busting that needs to go on, that there's myths and misconceptions quite often from parents. I had a young person who wanted to get into parks and gardens, but particularly into turf management. And this young person's father did everything he could to dissuade this young person. Would you want to do this low-skilled, low-paid work? People who work in these industries smoke too much dope or marijuana or whatever. He came to me and said, I don't think I'm going to pursue it. I actually convinced this person to stay with us. And they were working in local government. They were working for a local municipality. That person has gone on to become the greenskeeper for one of the most famous golf courses in the world.
Wow.
And they get paid a lot of money to do that.
Yeah.
They attend conferences. They're an expert. The person started as a plumber and then pivoted and switched. And it was amazing because irrigation is really important to understand plumbing. You can always reuse or recycle, look at the skills you've done. So this idea to constantly do a skills audit, and really more so now than ever, be a part of your community wherever you live. The networking within that community can lead to job opportunities, volunteering opportunities. And there is a lot of research that says you live longer if you've got a sense of community and you're a part of community. So diet is important. What you eat, absolutely. Exercise. But being a part of a community is so important. If I say today, what would be my one thing to leave listeners with, it would be a part of your local community.
That's fantastic advice. It's good for the community. It's good for you. It's a win-win.
Absolutely, Betsy. And I'm sure you've seen many employers. You're looking at a person you're potentially going to hire and they've done the same degree or got the same background, and you're looking for what's going to put one ahead of the other. And somebody who, particularly for young people, if you can show that you've shown up, you've attended, you're a part of something, this is what a lot of employers, I'm an employer, I should say, Betsy, in my larger world. I actually have about 800 people who work for me in varying enterprises. So I'm an employer at scale and I employ a lot of young adults. And that is one of the things that we always look for. We're always looking to see somebody who showed up and attended. And pretty much once we've got to that, if someone shows up, we can pretty much give them the skills, teach them how to adapt. But that idea of, one big turnoff for an employer in this day and age, very frustrating with an employer. You put so much effort into onboarding a new employee and, a couple of weeks in, couple of months in, they're like, no, it's not really what I wanted to do. I didn't really think this is what it was going to be like. And so it can be pretty frustrating for an employer. And unfortunately, there was somebody else possibly who would have been the right fit. And I know that we've really got to look at each opportunity as it comes up. And I think the more pre-work that somebody does to really make sure, this is the career path or this is the industry.
So I would love to talk more about modern apprenticeships. And I think for a lot of people, they think apprenticeship and they have this sort of idea in their head from 50 years ago or however long ago, where it's an electrician's apprentice or a plumber's apprentice, and those exist. But we're talking kind of more than that now, right? And industries where maybe apprenticeships didn't exist a long time ago.
So I came from a Commonwealth country. I think we're still part of the Commonwealth, Australia. Canada, the UK, Australia really adopted mainstream apprenticeship a lot earlier than the US. The US was very late to the party. And to your point, it really was building construction was apprenticeship in the US. Probably about 10 years ago, there's been a very specific effort federally, but also at the state level. So in my home state of California, there's a real effort to grow apprenticeships in all sorts of different industries. So pretty much if you think of an occupation, there is definitely an apprenticeship pathway towards that. If you want to become an engineer, going to college is definitely one pathway. It can be expensive, but it's definitely a pathway. But you can also undertake an apprenticeship in, for instance, electrotechnology or something like that, or mechatronics, which is like robotics and electrical, which is very big in automotive manufacturing. So there are all sorts of different apprenticeship opportunities in optical technicians, in medical. The US Forestry Service is actually developing some new apprenticeship pathways, which is the first they've developed in the last 3 decades. So a lot more organisations are using apprenticeship, and it really is, for those who aren't quite sure what it means, it's learning by doing. So you're actually working in a real job, a paid job, and you're receiving instruction, related instruction, whether it be attending a community college or a private training provider or undertaking some training with your employer. So it's this combination of on the job and off the job training. And I think it's a fantastic way, particularly for young people. I should disclose, I think I said that I was an apprentice, not when I was born, but when I was 17. That was just not for me. And I knew that I wanted to do something. And, you know, I could have gone into construction, the culinary world, but I wanted to earn money. And I've got a 15-year-old, and I noticed the other day, he got up and I said, "Where are you going at 7 o'clock in the morning?" And he said, "Oh, I'm going to try out for a job at this local store." And having interviews this morning. And I think it was very purposeful to have the interviews at 7:30 in the morning, because they're like, the people who show up at 7:30 in the morning really want to give this a go.
That's brilliant.
So his idea was he just wants to earn some money, earn some pocket money, and which is great. I know there are so many people out there, and I try and do it wherever I can. Just try this idea of give someone a go. We have to continue to pay it forward and look out for opportunities, particularly for young people. We had this whole generation who, as it were, missed that transition with COVID. But at the moment, it's pretty tough for people who are graduating high school right now. It doesn't matter if that person goes into a college course, a community college course, a private training provider course, gets a part-time job, has a gap year, travels, do something. What we don't want to see, or what is really not good for people, is to do nothing and become disengaged and turn little things into big things and let that turn into a cycle. So even if it's volunteering, so it's going to be tough for school leavers and college grads at the moment for entry-level jobs. I think a lot of employers are sitting on their hands waiting to see what's going to happen with the state of the economy. So a lot of employers are being fairly cautious at the moment. So if those pathways don't exist, or you can't find your dream job right now, do something. Do something. There's something to do out there. Just find it.
Absolutely.
Just find it.
I say all work is good work, because you never know what it's going to lead to.
Agree,
It's
Betsy.
great skills.
And who you're going to meet.
Right.
I mean, who you connect with, it's all a part of it. Absolutely.
Right. So for those who are not interested or don't have the ability to go to a college type environment, whether it's community college, 4-year, whatever, how can they access apprenticeships? Are there websites? Are there organizations? Are there companies that are kind of leading the way, or industries that are leading the way in this kind of hands-on learn as you go?
Yeah, absolutely. So you could look up the federal government's apprenticeship website, so the US Department of Labor. and they have some great resources and tools. But then in some specific states, like it's called DAS in California, so for people on the West Coast, they have a fantastic website which they've actually just upgraded, and it really highlights apprenticeship opportunities across the state. So that would be one of the first places to go. Then, of course, you've got the larger jobs boards. If you put into the specific search, just put in the word apprenticeship, you'll see a whole lot of different apprenticeships offered. Some companies do run their own apprenticeship programs, particularly in the automotive sector. I do work with CVS, who runs a fantastic 16-week pre-apprenticeship, which then leads to pharmacy technician roles. Each employer has a different way they approach skilling up their organisation because, of course, everyone's looking for competitive advantage. I always like to give the example of airlines. There's really only two airline or aircraft manufacturers in the world, so everyone's aircraft are pretty much the same. And they can't really control what goes on at the airport, but the cabin experience, the training of their in-flight crew, the training of their pilots, this is where organisations can really set themselves apart with this competitive advantage. A guy called Michael Porter came up with it at Harvard Business School many years ago. But it's the idea of where a company can do something which is hard for others to duplicate and replicate. And I always say that human capital, people, is an area where companies can always do something amazing.
Yeah. And we're starting to see or hear from companies that they're sort of pulling back or letting go a little bit of the college degree requirement. They're doing more skills-based hiring. I'm not seeing a lot of that actually being implemented. I'm hearing a lot of talk about it. But I think it just seems to make sense that companies would do more apprenticeships in roles where it makes sense, right? I mean, I hear what you're saying, the automobile industry and that sort of thing, but it just seems like there's so many more applications for apprenticeships that would really bring on talent quicker and more skills-based.
Well, you think about, if you go back, it's one of the Western world's oldest forms of learning. So think about, I was the recipient of a very qualified surgeon recently. Had a bit of work done on my leg, and I was about 2 weeks after I did a post visit, and there was a guy there, and he said, "Hi, we've met," and I'm like, "I don't think so." And he said, "No, I was in your surgery. I was learning from the surgeon." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I think I was knocked out at the time." But the surgeon was training somebody else how to do this specific leg surgery.
Right.
And so for all intents and purposes, it's really an apprenticeship, teaching someone how to undertake a skill. You have one person teaching another. And that's really what this idea or this spirit of apprenticeships. The other thing about apprenticeships is that if you get yourself a qualification from the US Department of Labor or from a state recognized body, that is something that is not only a nationally recognized qualification, you can take that internationally. Now, you might have to take on a few extra skills depending on the country or the region that you live in, but having that apprenticeship is globally recognized. And the Germans have been at this a very long time. And I remember, it was 7 or 8 years ago, maybe a bit more, 10 years ago, the US Department of Labor was saying the German system is the gold standard of apprenticeship worldwide. I disagree. I mean, the Germans do it well. The Swiss do it incredibly
really well. Yep.
The Swiss model, and what I love about the Swiss model, which really rounds out our conversation today about apprenticeships in college, is that quite often in Switzerland, apprenticeship pathways and opportunities fill before college pathways. So it's a different mindset. So it's going to take a bit of time for that to filter down, into our society. I mean, we've got Hollywood doesn't help us. They stereotype, apprenticeship and this idea of college. There's so many films that just weave this idea of, college. And as I said, I'm not sitting here knocking college. I mean, I've got a child who goes to a great college at the University of California College. But for her, it was the right thing for her. But for some of her friends, no. It's an individual decision that each person needs to make.
This has been such an interesting conversation. And I want to give people the opportunity to reach out to you or know where to find and follow you. Where would be a good place for people to do that?
So people can find me on LinkedIn, also on X, Nicholas_Wyman. And I also write and have written for Forbes for the last, must be getting on to close to 15 years. And there are pretty much articles there around apprenticeship. I've been writing a lot about AI. And I write from the perspective of not, an academic. I'm a rubber meets the road person. So I always like to tell stories of people I know that I've met along my journey. I've just written a fantastic, I think it's fantastic. It's always good to, talk about your own work. But there are certain articles that when I write them, I'm like, that's a good one. It's about a vet. And this person has set up a non-profit veterinary practice, and it's just doing things differently. And it's her interpretation of the industry. I really like to highlight people doing different things.
I'll include those links in the show notes, including the link to that article, which I actually want to read myself about the vet. But thanks so much for being here. It's been such a great conversation. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, I've really, really enjoyed it. And I think we covered some great things. So I hope the listeners enjoy the session.
I'd like to thank my guest, Nick Wyman, for joining me today. Our conversation is such an important reminder that there is no one correct path to career success anymore. The world of work is changing rapidly, and the people who are willing to adapt, learn continuously, build skills, and stay engaged are the ones who are going to create opportunities for themselves moving forward. If you would like to connect with Nick, you can find him on LinkedIn. I'll include all links in the show notes. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the Career Intelligence Podcast and share it with a student, parent, educator, or young professional who could benefit from hearing this message. And if you're a young adult feeling overwhelmed, trying to figure out your next step, whether that's choosing a major, finding internships, building experience, navigating a career pivot, or standing out in today's competitive job market, I'd love to help. You can learn more about working with me at betsyjewellcoaching.com. Thanks so much for listening, and until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and building your career intelligence.
Forward.